Thank you, Your Excellency. and it's good to see so many people here who are knowledgeable about the Horn of Africa and resilience. But I just want to give a couple of key highlights on our perspectives, especially in relation to implementation of resilience in the Horn of Africa and more specifically in Ethiopia. I think droughts are not new in the Horn. We had so many droughts for a long time. 1984, 95, 98, 2005 and 6, and more recently 2011. I think just to take back into perspective, even IGAD was created in 1984 to address the Horn of Africa drought. Initially, IGAD was Intergovernmental Authority on Drought and Development. So IGAD was also created to address drought crisis in the early 90s. However, what's really worrying is a number of people who are increasingly becoming more vulnerable. The numbers are increasing, so it's really worrying why we're not addressing what are the root causes of vulnerability in these areas. My former colleague John Graham once told me, take advantage of a crisis, never waste a moment. So always crisis, especially in the Horn of Africa and more specific in Ethiopia, USAID, we've been very creative in the way we do business. We've always used a new opportunity every time there's a crisis. We try new things and be creative. For example, in the early 2000s, when there was a big famine in Somali region, we supported the early warning system. So since then, there's a credible early warning information in Somali region that's more robust, evidence-based, and providing more information. Again, in the 2005, we tried the crisis modifier and linked that to the commercial destocking. In 2011, when the drought happened, we were able to scale up a lot of these interventions. And I think it's always good to be a knowledgeable implementer or a knowledgeable donor. You have foot on the ground, you're creative, you try new things don't work always, but then you're able to do other stuff. However, based on our experiences, and a lot of it is evidence-based, and there's a lot of analysis that's involved in this, I think my big five, I like to say the resilience, the big 5 Ps. P for Papa, not P for boy. So we always have a problem pronouncing P and B. So there are 5 Ps I would like to highlight as the most critical. One is a political will, both at the government and also development partners. As Kabayo mentioned, the Horn of Africa now, IGAD and member states are really committed. There's a good commitment, political goodwill, so we need to sustain. My biggest worry, not just the government, but even development partners, is in the next 2-3 years, then resilience might not be at the top priority. Syria or something else might come up and then the money goes. So we really need to maintain the political will and momentum, both at the national, at the headquarter level, throughout in terms of gaining that. I think political will is important. The second one is a policy. I think policies that support and promote sustainable livelihoods in the drylands is really critical. And I think one area a lot of discussions happen, for us, Ethiopia, we've done a lot of analysis. What we've discovered is there are 2 groups of main livelihoods in these areas. One is the more viable pastoralists that are engaged in livestock trade and livestock exports. So that's one group that's really beneficial. 95%, for example, of Ethiopian meat exports come from the drylands. So supporting the livestock exports and the livestock trade is critical. However, we also note that there's a group of people that are transitioning out of pastoralism. We call it TOPs, people moving in urban centers, trying new livelihoods. So we really need to support that. So the policies need to address both, particularly in ensuring pastoral mobility, access to rangeland, livestock trade. The third element I think I want to emphasize is practice. It's a P that's really important. In the Horn of Africa, from our experience, there are so many failed projects. I remember in the 80s, in the 90s, there were so many big multi-million-dollar projects that were implemented. Honestly, we haven't done a good job in terms of going back and reflecting what worked, what didn't work. Why were those projects not successful in terms of addressing the vulnerability? So learning from the past is always important, but also as we learn, we need to improve our practices in terms of evidence-based and try new things. Don't be afraid to fail. The fourth element, the fourth P, I think, is the private sector. And here I don't mean the big multinational, I don't mean DuPont or the big companies, but I mean the small micro enterprises or small businesses that are functioning in these areas. So we need to promote and support private sector investment in these areas, especially in value addition, financial services, service delivery, and using them as a kind of a mechanism to be implementing some of these humanitarian interventions. The final P, I think, is the people. It's really important. Every time you come to a meeting or a conference, we always talk about the pastors of the people, but we rarely engage them in terms of decision making, in terms of what's good for them. So we always assume we know everything, but then it's always difficult to engage and have their perspectives. So having the pastors' people in terms of their voice and decision making is critical. I think I want to share with you a final quote that I just got from my book that we've developed with the team. There's a leader, his name is Liban Jilo Koma, he's a Borana elder. He said, "We know from long experience that pastoralism works in this environment. If the rain doesn't come, a pastoralist can always move his animals to where there is water, but he cannot move his farm." So it just shows there's a lot of knowledge there, and we need to be part of that. Thank you.